Good evening and welcome to On the Mark with Mark Hamade, presented by Salina Tech on Salina's True Rock Station 95.5 The Rock. I'm Morgan Lilick, your host, joined as always here in studio by Mark Hamade. Mark, how is the evening treating you?
Fantastic. Having a good evening today.
Yeah, me too. And I think we've got a great show lined up for our listeners tonight. We hope you all listening out there would agree. Tonight, we're talking about value and innovation and what the two in tandem can really do to take your business to the next level. So we'll start with a very simple question that has about a million different answers. Mark, in your definition, what is value as it relates to the business world?
You know, value is really what you get, Morgan. I think that's very important. It's really what you stand for. It's what you get out of something. It's the relative worth, the merit, the importance of it. You know, a good example is your education. It brings you a lot of value because you're able to use it for different things, for life, for getting a job. It shows you that, you know what, you started something and you ended it. You have certain teachers that teach you certain things that you'll use for life, for growing kids, for everything. So that's really something that's empowering and is lasting, I would say.
It's got to have worth, and it has to stand the test of time. Absolutely, Mark. Now, how can a business owner quantify value? It's so tough because it's one of those intangible things. It's hard to register, but where it really shows up is on the bottom line. Are there other ways that you would recommend to business owners to really quantify the value in what they're doing and what they're putting out there?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, value is really, it could be with the quality of what they're selling, with how long it lasts. Right? I mean, if it's a vacuum cleaner that lasts for 5 years instead of 2, well, that's a value to the consumer. If it's a cheeseburger that's satisfying, that after 10 minutes you're not hungry to eat something else, well, that's a value. So it's giving that service that really lasts. And you can sleep at night knowing that, you know, you paid for something and you got a good value for it because you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and breaking it down to its most basic form, value is naturally going to be the cost of something versus what you get for that cost. Now, does that mean something that's extremely high priced doesn't have value? Absolutely not, because it might have a wealth of return for you. Say you've saved up all your life to go on a European vacation. I'm just going to throw an example out there. You know, maybe it's a ridiculous amount of money that you have to spend to go on this vacation, but it's been a lifetime goal for you. It's something you've wanted to do since you were little. You finally get to take advantage of that. Some people might be looking at you and saying, wow, you spent $10,000 on a vacation. You're an idiot. But if you're the person that took that vacation and you've wanted to for your entire life, then that brought immense value. That $10,000 was money well invested. And that same principle really translates over to the business world. Anything that you're out there as a consumer purchasing, as long as you're getting that return on your investment equal to or greater than what you've expected, you've gotten your value back. If you've made an investment out there and you are disappointed, then obviously the product that you've purchased loses value. So on the other side of that, if you're selling products and services, if you're trying to perform a function for somebody out there, they've got to see that value back in equal or greater amount to the cost that was spent. So always remember to try to go above and beyond. Anything that you're out there trying to do, go above and beyond what your competitors do. It's really that simple.
Absolutely. I would echo those sentiments.
Mark, now, it's not only important to value your business, but as we just talked about a little bit, to ensure that the products one produces are valued by the consumer. So what steps can business owners take to ensure that their customers, their end users, perceive great value in their product?
Well, you know, it's always talking to them, getting feedback from them, asking them what they need to do, and that's where you can innovate. You know, innovation is the ability to convert ideas into invoices. So it's really asking them what else they can do for them to really help their business and help them.
Absolutely. Customer feedback is critical. If you're really looking to increase the value of your product, ask your customers. It's that simple. Maybe you're out of the job fair. You know, the Farm and Ranch Expo was here just a couple of weeks back in Salina. It's a great chance for people out there, vendors that are on site, to really talk to the public, find out what they're looking for. Maybe they're not delivering on a certain product. Maybe they're not delivering on a certain service, and it's at a detriment to the company. Well, what you got to do is go out, hit it hard, talk to the people. The people that are purchasing your good or service, those are the ones that are going to determine your value in the end. So if you're struggling really to provide top value, then go out there, visit with the people, find out what they want, and it's just like the old saying goes, give the people what they want. Mark, we're going to shift gears here a little bit. We mentioned value and innovation tonight. We've talked a lot about value here in our opening segment. Let's talk a little bit about innovation. You defined it for our listeners a few moments ago, but if you're in business, you know that being innovative is crucial for any company, particularly those in the industrial or the technological sector. You got to be innovative to live on that cutting edge, and if you're not, you're falling behind your competition. Mark, what do innovative companies do so well that make them so successful?
Just being different. Alan Kay once said the best way to predict the future is to invent it, right? Innovation is anything but business as usual. There are no old roads to new directions, right? Minds are like parachutes. They work well when they are open. So times change things, but you actually have to change them yourself. It's tough when markets change and your people within the company don't, right? It's always changing. So you have to continue to adapt, change. And it's really converting ideas into, I would say invoices. You can do something innovative, right? But if it doesn't work, what's the point? Let's look at the iPad or the cell phone. It used to be just one where you could call, then texting, now email, now that. When it became email and you could go on the web and the picture wasn't nice and it couldn't be used, people said it was innovative. Not really. Not if you can't use it. When your cell phone now, you can actually email, do Excel, do a Word document. You can use it as a computer. That's innovative because it's just that good.
And the internet was the example I was going to go with there as well, Mark. I mean, if you really stop and think about life before the internet, it's like a completely different world than the one we live in now. And it really wasn't that long ago, folks. 30 years ago, there was no people sitting at home on their computers, their laptops, their iPads, their touchscreens, whatnot. That wasn't happening. People communicated differently. Businesses communicated differently to their consumers. With the advent of the internet and the innovation behind it to make it better and more user-friendly as it's gone on through time, businesses have had to adjust their models. The internet is here to stay. So naturally, if you say you're a nationwide business, you're a global business, even your local business here in the Salina area, you got to have a web page. It's just that simple. You've got to have a site out there for people to view your products. If you don't, you are behind the game. That's something that innovation has changed. The innovation of the internet, the bringing of the new technology has really made that change for all of us. And if you don't change with the times, you get left behind. So think about it just a little bit. You need to go out there. You need to find new ways to reach the same customers that you've been reaching. If you want to develop new customers, you've got to go at them their way. Maybe, you do an email blast. Maybe you get somebody signed up to do a texting campaign where you text them great deals if they come in on a regular basis. They get coupon specials that are only available through texting. Social media is another great innovation, a great way to promote your business out there that not everybody is using yet. I mean, it's getting to the point where most businesses that are in the know and stay on the cutting edge have had social media websites for a long time and have used that to their advantage. If you're not doing that, folks, you're falling behind. You've got to be innovative and forward-thinking to move ahead and to continue the success of your business in the future, because other people out there are going to be innovating theirs to try to beat you.
Well, and then you have to have a quantifiable message. I mean, that's really critical. You can have Facebook, Twitter, all of that stuff, LinkedIn, all of that. But if you're not sending something of value and of meaningful reason, that's when it fails. So when people say social networking doesn't work, it doesn't work if you don't have meat to what you're saying. You have to have meat.
Yeah, it's like if I go on and use our social media websites here at Rockingham Radio, for an example, Mark, if I go on and say, hey, we're going to play a song here in 8 hours, does it have any value? No, it doesn't have any value. Now, if you go on and say, hey, we're going to give away a brand new car in 8 hours, does that have value? You bet it does. And people are going to stay tuned for that. But you got to use your social media platforms and your other innovative ways to get to the consumer in a way that is going to be effective. You can't just blow smoke. You've got to have some substance behind us, Mark. That was well put. We are getting short on time here in our first segment. Scott Melnick, the Vice President of the American Institute of Steel Construction, is on the line. We'll visit with him when we return to On the Mark with Mark Hamade, presented by Salina Tech on Salina's True Rock Station, 95.5 The Rock.
Welcome back to On the Mark with Mark Hamade, presented by Salina Tech on 95.5 The Rock.
Our program brought to you tonight by Hassman Termite and Pest Control, providing 50 years of quality service from the Hassman family, and by the Reardon Clinic in Wichita. Better Health is just down the road. To find out more, call 1-800-447-7276 or go online to reardonclinic.org. Our guest tonight to join us in this conversation about value and innovation is Scott Melnick, the Vice President of the American Institute of Steel Construction. Scott, we are very happy to have you on the Mark tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and I know he's got some great questions lined up for you this evening, and looking forward to a terrific discussion.
Thank you, Morgan. Well, Scott, we're glad to have you on. Scott, the AISC conference to me is one of the most extremely valuable, if not the most valuable conference for the construction industry. Can you tell the listeners and those who are not attending that may want to attend next year what it means to you and the industry?
Well, the Steel Conference is a very special conference and a little bit different than most of the conferences you go to. Typically, when you go to a conference, a technical conference, the conference organizers issue a call for papers, people submit the call for papers, we evaluate them, and then we have sessions. The Steel Conference turns that on its head. So what we do is we have a committee that thinks about what are the key issues for the industry. And so what we do is we develop the topics, and then we go out, we assign topics to our committee members, and they go out and find who's the expert on that topic. So rather than having people come to us with ideas for sessions, we actually solicit specific speakers for the sessions for the concepts we want explored. As a result, not only is it an outstanding technical conference, but it's attracting more and more attendees, which means it's more and more attractive to exhibitors, which means it's not just the conference for technical information, it's also the conference for new product introductions. And we more and more see exhibitors actually introducing their most recent products at this conference. In addition, it's the one place I can think of where it's not just fabricators, or it's not just engineers, or it's not just erectors or detailers. What this is a conference for the entire industry. So they all come together, so you're talking not just to your peers and networking with your peers, but you're also talking and networking with your potential clients and your potential vendors and everyone else who's involved in the design and construction of steel buildings.
Excellent, Scott. I totally agree with you. And I'll add to that, a lot of times price is what you pay, but value is what you get. And with this conference, you get a ton of value. Scott, what separates AISC from other trade associations?
Well, I think the biggest difference is we're not just a trade association, we're also a technical institute. So we don't just promote the use of fabricated structural steel. We are also a standard-setting organization, which means we actually write the specification to which all steel buildings in the United States are built. This is important because our technical department, our engineering department, won't let us do anything that's not perfectly on the mark, that's not perfectly justifiable by facts. We can't just market by stretching the truth unless we actually have hard data to show that whatever we're saying is true. We can't say it. If you want a really good example of that, there was a project, a little problem in Oklahoma City that you might all remember from a few years ago when a domestic terrorist blew up a building.
Right.
A few years later, the government was wondering what would have happened to that building had it been constructed of steel members instead of concrete. And what they actually thought about was if you design it for seismic connections, which are more resistant than standard connections, would that steel frame building have stood up? And so they went to one of the leading engineering firms on the West Coast and asked them to model it. And the answer came back a little bit surprising to the government, to the General Services Administration. It actually came back and said, not only would the building have stayed up if it was designed for seismic loads, but even if it used conventional steel buildings, it would have stayed up. Well, the GSA said, that's interesting, but we don't agree. We think this column here would have been destroyed by the explosion. So we thought that was kind of interesting. So we funded a study where we built a frame, modeled basically the same building but in steel, actually built one of the frames, had the Department of Defense explode essentially a bomb the same distance as the bomb that was used in Oklahoma City. We didn't put it in a rental truck because the rental companies weren't that amused by that idea. And it turned out that member that the engineering firm said wouldn't come down, it sure enough did not come down. It deformed a little bit, but it carried its load without any problem. You'd think that's a great story. We should be telling everyone about it. We didn't tell people about it for almost 3 years because we were waiting for the government study and results to come out, because until they issued the final results, we weren't going to talk about it. And that's one of the big differences between being a trade association and being a trade association and technical institute.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense, Scott. And with that, we'll come up to the point of, that's innovation. You tried a new idea. And I see how your willingness to innovate relates to the conference. But what else does AIAC try new things in?
Just about everything. We have a lot of tolerance for doing things differently. A good example of that is we produce a series of design guides. And we sell the design guides. And to be honest, they don't sell very well. So a few years ago, because part of our mission is to disseminate information about structural steel, because the theory is the more people know about structural steel, the easier it is to design in structural steel, and the more likely designers are to design in structural steel. So we have these design guides. They weren't selling very well, but we still wanted to get the information out there. So what we did is we created electronic versions of it. We digitized the design guides, and we gave them away for free.
Excellent.
But what we've discovered by doing that is the sales of the hard copies actually increased. Now, when you talk to economists, that's actually something they predict, but it sounds so counterintuitive that most people aren't willing to try it. But we try things like that.
Now, Scott, speaking of new things, AIAC has an odd registration discount, whereby the price of registering for the conference increases each week. Why did you implement such a plan, and how successful has it been?
One of the things that happens with the conference is we regularly get over 3,000 attendees and 3,400, 3,500 attendees. But one of the problems is our industry tends to procrastinate. And the vast majority of the registrations came in like the last 2 weeks. And we even get 600 or 700 people registering on site.
Got it.
And while it doesn't affect the conference, it makes our exhibitors really, really nervous, because some of our exhibitors are spending not so much to rent the space at the conference, but if you're doing heavy fabrication equipment, you might be spending $250,000 to just bring the equipment to the conference. So they get very, very nervous when, there's no one registered up until 2 weeks earlier.
Absolutely.
So we thought about that, and I was talking to an economist about how to price membership dues for something else we were doing. And I said, this is the real problem I have. And I explained it to her, and she smiled and said, well, there's a theoretical solution to this, but no one's willing to try it because it just sounds so bizarre. And I said, let me hear what it is. I'm willing to try bizarre things. And what she said is, if you increase the price of registration every week by just a little tiny bit, in our case, we increased the cost of registration by $10. And $10 doesn't seem like much, and $10 for most people isn't that much. But what it does is it creates an artificial incentive to act. And so people tend to register early, and it's been outrageously successful. Now we have more than half of our registrants coming in the first month or so. And it makes our attendees very, very happy.
With that kind of innovation, it's a central issue in basically the prosperity for the conference and for those exhibitors that makes them happy, which is excellent.
Thank you.
Scott, a lot of amazing things come out of this conference. What is one thing that is really dearest to your heart?
I think for me, the technical sessions are great. It's fun to see the really cool equipment on the exhibition floor. But what's really nice is who you see at the conference. I can remember my first steel conference was in 1990, and I'm at the conference, and the first night of the conference, I talked to my girlfriend back in Chicago. We're now married, by the way. I called her, and I said, I was so excited. I said, "You'll never guess who I met." And because I talk about these people all the time, she actually named two of the people I met, and I said, "Yeah, I'm so excited," and she rolled her eyes. But these are people, the leaders of the structural steel industry, the people who are doing really, really innovative work. Last year I met Ted Zoli, who's a MacArthur Genius Grant recipient. And I remember meeting Socrates Ioannidis, who's just a really bizarre but really fun person. I can remember sitting and listening to someone like a Jim Fisher, who's been in the industry for 200-300 years or something like that, or it just seems that way. But his stories are so fascinating that you just sit and listen to him. You sit at a bar, have a liquid refreshment, and just listen to Jim spin his yarns. And to me, that's what the conference is really all about. The opportunity to meet new people and to meet people who are really significant within the industry.
Absolutely, Scott, and I would echo those, and I would also say sometimes meeting people is scary to all of us, and the key to success is to make a habit throughout our life of doing things that we fear, because the impossible is often not tried, and when we try it, it can become successful, and it can surprise us. I want to say thank you for joining me on the show. I value and appreciate your time. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners?
Steel Day is coming up at the end of September. I recommend everyone finds a local fabricator and visits their shop on Steel Day.
Fantastic. Can you give them where to go to find a fabricator or a place to check it out?
Sure, www.steelday.org.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Scott, and have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks. You too, Mark.
Guys, that's Scott Melnick, the Vice President of the American Institute of Steel Construction, talking about the upcoming AISC conference. That is going to be a good one. I loved what he had to say there, too, Mark. I think I'm going to take that idea of the price hike every week and use that to the benefit. That's a good idea. And
it is a great idea.
Perfect guest to have on to talk about innovation. Well, when we come back, we're going to delve into our social media mailbox. We've got a great question lined up here for you this evening. You're listening to On the Mark, presented by Salina Tech on 95.5 The Rock. Stay tuned. Welcome back to On the Mark, presented by Salina Tech on Salina's True Rock Station 95.5 The Rock, the show dedicated to your success. And we bring it to you with the help of some truly valued sponsors. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Speedy Cash. Need cash fast? Visit your Salina Speedy Cash at Crawford and Broadway today. By Salina Downtown Inc. Discover Salina's historic downtown online at salinadowntown.com. And of course, by Salina Tech. Life's a trip. Get directions at salinatech.edu. Well, Mark, tonight's social media mailbox question is from Denise Hoffner from Salina, and Denise writes in, how does an effective leader foster an environment in which employees are motivated to come up with innovative ideas that will be a win-win for the company and the employee? A great question tonight from Denise. Mark, what are your thoughts?
Well, that's a great question, Morgan, from Denise, and what I would say first, constant innovation is a hallmark of successful growth companies. Staying ahead of the competition requires inventiveness, individual, group, and company levels. Now, organizational complexity erodes flexibility. Then you've got the company's tolerance for risk and uncertainty that also reduces its growth. And new and old corporations sometimes collide. So it's addressing the challenge. Sustaining the innovation culture requires companies to create environments where creative thinking is central to corporate values, action, and assumption. So you've got to create the foundation, right? Companies need to assess the role of innovation within their organization, make the necessary adjustments to their goals and corporate culture, and also redefine the responsibilities of their leaders. You've got to also enhance the operation to foster innovation. By creating that environment that empowers the employees, the companies will promote the required collaboration to generate and implement new ideas. Manage the ongoing change. Companies must create teams to guide them through the periods of change. I think that is very, very important. So you've got to create the required foundations. So what does that mean? Well, it means strong culture enhances performance in two ways. First, it energizes employees by appealing to their higher ideals and values, and by rallying them around a set of meaningful, unified goals. Second, it boosts performance and by shaping and coordinating employee behavior. So you've got to define the element of culture. What the hell is culture? Culture consists of the values, beliefs, and the norms that are exhibited in the way that people in the organization accomplish their work, relating to one another, and solve the problem that confronts them on a daily basis, the way we do things around here. Companies need to focus innovation-related activities around the three principal elements of corporate culture: core values, beliefs, and norms. Core values are principles that help employees make decisions about what's important to the company. Beliefs are what I call shared views of what is right and wrong. And norms are the operating rules to determine acceptable employee behavior. A single set of core value, beliefs, and norms will focus the entire workforce on a set of common goals to create innovation.
And that is a fantastic answer, Mark. All I can really, there's not much left to add to that. I would say, Denise, that an effective leader to foster that kind of environment where the employees are motivated to come up with ideas, give them incentives. Give your employees incentives to want to come up with ideas. Be open so that new ideas aren't shut down and that they feel like their voice can be heard. If you have an employee out there that presents an idea and it's smacked down because it didn't come from the higher ups, or you know what, you just stick to your job and we'll stick to ours. That obviously is not going to foster that kind of environment. So business owners have to be open to having their employees come to them, present ideas and innovative ideas, ways to improve the company that they'll actually listen to. So you just got to be open and letting your people know that you are willing to work with them and that their ideas really do matter. It's not just your way or the highway. It really is their ideas. And if you can have an incentive, some kind of a contest, a promotion that you can do to really gather your workforce to come up with different ideas to solve a problem that you're needing to hurdle to move on to bigger and better things, it's a great way to go as well.
A lot of companies say a lot of things. You've got to practice what you preach, and you've got to give constant reinforcement on a day-to-day basis of what you really stand for. I think that is very, very important. And then three different factors: the company goals, organizational structure, and employee behavior. If you work on those three, you can foster innovation, and hopefully with innovation, you're going to make more money as a company. The ideas are going to generate value, and the company and the employees should share in that success.
And then, Denise, you will have that win-win that you're looking for. Well, Denise, we appreciate you taking the time to write into On the Mark. For doing so tonight and having us use your question on tonight's episode, you have just won $25 in Salina Downtown dollars that are good for any participating business in Salina Downtown. It's as good as cash. We thank Salina Downtown for sponsoring our social media mailbox segment. And once again, Denise, thank you for writing in. Well, for tonight's guests, Scott Melnick and Mark Hamade, I'm Morgan Lillick saying so long. Tune in again, 5:30 next Wednesday, right here on 95.5 The Rock for another episode of On the Mark with Mark Hamade, presented by Salina Tech. Have a great evening.